Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our monthly Coffee and Conversation series. So let me just remind you, if you have a cell phone, please silence it. And when we get to any questions and answers, please just raise your hand. We'll come over with a microphone because this is on FCTV because it's great information we like to share with our community, okay? So don't worry, we'll get you over, but we want to make sure your question hits the microphone.
Good morning, everybody. So welcome to Policing with the People. I can't believe it's March. I'm in month 9. I'm in month 9 here now. It feels like 9 years some days, but it's flying by. We're really busy. I was hoping we would slow down a little bit in the winter months, but it really has been busy, and the staff's been doing a phenomenal job. So I'm really excited. We've got a good program for you today. Members of my staff here, Officer Fasaro's in the back. I have Detective Porter, and I'm going to introduce, he's going to be doing a little presentation on scams for you. Obviously, I think it's Scam Awareness Month. So we're going to do a little of that, and I'm going to introduce some absolute rock stars that work with us here in the different programs that we're offering here in Falmouth that I think really enhancing our ability to really serve you folks. So the only quick update I'd like to give you is this Saturday, I went before the Select Board. They had a summit. You can see it. And again, thank you, Falmouth TV, for taping this show, and they taped that, where we discussed the new station. So I'm really appreciative of their support because it is, like I described to them, it is gross over there, but it's a clean gross. So we're doing some painting, we cleaned some things up, we did some flooring, so it's going well, and hopefully 3, 4, 5 years we'll be in a state-of-the-art facility we'll all be very proud of. So because we have such a packed event for you tonight, I'm going to start to introduce Carmen. Carmen here is our domestic violence advocate, so I'm going to have her just explain what she does, and then we'll introduce 2 other young ladies.
Good morning. My name is Carmen Espinoza, and I am the Domestic Violence Advocate at the Falmouth Police Department. I'm also a counselor at Independence House who, the whole position at... I can't hear you. Okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, God. All right. Sorry about that. I'm the Domestic Violence Advocate at the Falmouth Police Department. I'm also a counselor at Independence House. And the position of the Falmouth Police Department is to get as many victims connected to the resources that are available here in Falmouth and the Upper Cape so that they can start that process of getting the help that they're looking for. Basically, I find victims by going through the police log every day, picking out calls that have domestics actually involved in them, but there can be other kinds of calls that involve domestics, such as unwanted guests. Yep. So the whole point of the job is to connect with people, men and women, who are being abused in their relationships. The other side of that is the elder abuse, where the adult children have moved home and are now abusing the parents. It's a big problem in the Upper Cape with our elderly population in all the towns. And we have a great resource through Independence House. I do believe Freddie Carbone comes in here once a month on Tuesdays to do groups and stuff. We just want people to know there's help out there regardless of the age and regardless of the relationship. If it's your children, it's your grandchildren, we can help. And the services are free and confidential. Nobody knows about it through insurance. And that's what we want people to know. They can come get help without having someone arrested that day, and they can think of other ways to make their situation better before they go that route. Because a lot of them will not call the police and will not have that person arrested. And that's okay. There's still a lot of help without having to arrest the person that's hurting them. That being said, it's 24/7. You can call anytime and get resources. We'll call you back. We'll send you packets. We'll give you information. We'll connect you with the resources that'll help. And that's basically what I do. There's some packets on the back table. This one is from the officers. When they go out on a domestic violence call, they hand this out, and it's got a variety of resources in there. for all kinds of stuff. The DA's office, the Falmouth Food Pantry, Falmouth Human Services for Counseling and Therapy, the homelessness program. So everything is available if they want to get more information so they can start working on their situations. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Carmen before we move on? So it's basically providing services, thinking outside the box, which is extremely important. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but it is something that we do have here in Falmouth at the police department. Carmen's very busy, and I'm very appreciative for all her efforts to help those that are in crisis. And I'm going to move on now to our two clinicians. So the backstory on this was the select board, it was part of, I believe, their strategic plan, or it was very important on that priority list for us to have licensed clinicians. When I was the police chief in central Massachusetts, we wrote a grant through the Department of Mental Health, and we had a clinician that was assigned to us that worked for a company called Advocates in that group. So they weren't necessarily our employee, they worked for another company, but they rode with the officers similar to what we have here. What we have, I think, is much better. So what Falmouth did is we hired two clinicians. They're on our payroll, and they basically report to the police department. They work with Human Alliance, they work with different groups, and it's just, again, tools for our toolbox to help those that are in crisis. And it's a great program. The officers love it. I love it. It works. It really does. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie and Molly. They can tell you a little bit what they do, and then if you have any questions for them, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. So I'm Stephanie Doherty. I am a licensed social worker and one of the behavioral health clinicians with Falmouth Police.
And I'm Molly Marshall. I'm also a licensed independent clinical social worker who works alongside Stephanie and the Falmouth Police Department.
So just a little bit about what we do. Our role is really to support our officers and the department in managing mental health calls. There's, as some of you might know, kind of a mental health crisis across really the nation. So what we do is we respond with officers if a call comes in that appears to have a mental health component, or really any component where a social worker might be helpful. So it might be a family who's just looking to get services in place for their child. It might be someone who is suicidal. It could be someone struggling with substance use. Really, we can respond to all of those calls to, just provide support and resources, and hopefully, keep people out of the hospital, keep people from being arrested, and better support the community. So we kind of split our time between riding with officers on the road and being available in the station. We also are able to follow up with folks after the fact. So someone comes in contact with the police and we're not there, we can always reach out. We also do a lot of coordination with other community-based organizations. We work with other police departments. Some of them have clinicians, some of them don't. And so we're able to kind of bridge that gap for folks who are maybe in Falmouth sometimes and in other towns other times. We work with the Senior Center during a meeting that they have. We work with Falmouth Human Resources just to make sure that we're kind of reaching everybody we need to reach in the community who might be struggling.
And so one of the benefits of having us as co-responding clinicians riding along is, for example, there was a traffic stop and it seemed to just be a simple car accident, and it turned out that the driver of one of those cars was having a mental health crisis at the time. And so unexpectedly, our services were called into action right there on something that we didn't expect to be. And it really does vary. We visit out the homeless camps throughout the community. We do welfare checks. Anything that we're able to do in conjunction with the police department is sort of falls under our scope.
And just to add to that, which is really fantastic, is we're being welcomed a little bit more now with these folks with us, because we don't want them, for their safety, to go to these camps alone. And it's very sad. We're number 2 on the Cape with our homeless situation. Number 3 is not even close to us. So they've really opened some doors there where we can really give some people some help. Molly was riding with Officer Julia Massey one day when we were called to an unattended death. And the family member was extremely distraught. And Julia said to me, the help that Molly gave to calm this family member. And then while they were there, another family member showed up who was even more distraught. It just really allows us to focus on the task at hand, where they can really focus on the mental health aspect of getting those folks what they need to get through that critical incident, that crisis that they're dealing with. So both of them absolutely rock. I mean, all three of these ladies here are just phenomenal, what they do for our community, in the support for our officers. And what we're working on is the Law Enforcement Council. We have a Law Enforcement Council on the Cape, and I was involved in it in Central Mass. We have, it's a unit called, Mental and Physical Health and Wellness. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a component of that team. I'll be the unit control chief. So our clinicians will be communicating with each other throughout the entire Cape, because this isn't a Falmouth problem, this is a regional problem. It's homeless people that are coming down, maybe they're in Gosnold or they're at one of our sober houses. So we're in conversation with these different communities for the person that's coming down to Falmouth from P-Town, so we better understand maybe what their needs are and how can we support them, you know, when they're in Falmouth visiting us. So very pleased with what these ladies are doing day in and day out. It's awesome. They're on call, you know, 24/7 really at times for us if we have a real critical incident. And what's also great about this too is they're keeping an eye on us, making sure we're okay, right? Because it can be very stressful, you know, job at times, dealing with some of the things you have to deal with, and having that skill set there to maybe, hey, I know a clinician that's down in Provincetown, if you need to talk to someone, if you're not comfortable talking with me, if you're a coworker. And they're just a part of the team as the officers that are in this room. They're just vital members of Team Falmouth PD. Anything else? Any questions? I think we need mics. I can help you too. Someone over here.
Good morning. How do you stay out of harm's way when you're riding with the officers?
Sure. So both, I can't tell if I'm, oh, there we go. Okay. So both Molly and I, as part of our job, we, have protective vests, similar to what a police officer would wear. But when we are going to a call, we respond if the officer wants us to. So they go in, they make sure the scene is safe. They make sure that, there's no risk to us. And then, we would follow them in. They're with us the whole time. So we don't go out and do work in the community without having the support of an officer with us. Yeah.
And if it's not safe, they stay in the car. So I did have an issue when I was in Central Mass, someone in crisis from another town, because we shared a clinician with Northborough and Southborough until we got our own. And the issue was actually in the town of Southborough. So the individual who had come into our lobby drove to Southborough. Our clinician and an officer went to Southborough headquarters to assist. And in the process, this person on Facebook Live stabbed a sergeant in the back. And it was very stressful. So in that situation, the clinician is locked in the car and make sure that they're safe until we take care of the scene. Was there another question? Yeah.
Paul Riley, Moss Hill Road. Are you involved with the immigrant situation? Yeah.
So really what we're dealing with really is, I'm sure there are some, maybe in these camps, but what we're really dealing with is a homeless situation. When I was in Westboro, yes, 3 of our extended stays had quite a few, and they were building a shelter at the old state hospital property. But to my knowledge, we don't have that in our hotels as of yet. I do expect it at some point, but not as yet. Was there someone else I saw?
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of you.
Can you give some examples of what a crisis looks like, and when to call, when to wait to call, and when to call immediately?
Sure. So My perspective, so prior to working with the police department, I worked for another program doing crisis work. Crisis is different for everybody. You know, there's no set definition of what a crisis looks like. It's whenever you feel like you need help, right? So it could be something as extreme as someone who is wanting to harm themselves or end their life. It could be as simple as someone who just, you know, has been depressed and doesn't know where to turn. My personal opinion is it's always better to call sooner rather than later. You know, I would rather have us show up and not be needed than be needed and not show up. So what we're available pretty consistently. So people are always welcome to reach out to us if they don't feel like necessarily they need a police response, but they do need a clinician. But if there's a safety concern, if you're worried about yourself or someone else and their safety, I would call. Again, it's better to call and not need someone than not call and find out later that you really did need that response.
And there's also, we like to tell people there is a distinction between the 911 calls, which would be an emergency call, and the calls that you can make on the police department's business line. If there's something that you think might be happening or something might be escalating and it's not necessarily to a safety standpoint yet, you can call that business line. And any call that you do make to the police department, you can ask if there is a clinician on duty. And if we're available, we will absolutely respond.
Thank you. I wonder if you could tell us, are you all full-time employees of the police department? All three of you?
So Stephanie and myself, we are full-time. We work 40 hours a week, and we each take a week of on-call every other week.
Right. Thank you.
I wondered if you feel it's suitable sometimes to offer the information about the extreme risk protective order to the people you're talking with.
I'm not actually familiar with that. Can you?
Are you talking about a restraining order?
No, I'm talking about the extreme risk protective order. We'll talk. Okay.
Sure, not a problem.
It's when someone is a gun owner and perhaps it's not appropriate for them to have access to guns for a while. And anyway, we're always okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, ladies, for coming. So we're going to bat and clean up here is Detective Porter, and he's going to talk to you about scams. Do you want this mic?
I have to be pinned here so I
All
can
right.
move the slides around. Test, test. All right. All right, so before we get into scams, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Jimmy Porter. I've been with the Falmouth Police Department about 18 years. I'm a detective and the police prosecutor. I'm also the liaison for the senior center. Before we get into scams, I just wanted to mention something about the clinicians, that they've really kind of filled a hole in our services that we've had recently. So I've been around for a little while, and a lot of times when we think about mental health crisis, it presents as criminal behavior, if that makes sense to you. A lot of times if we see somebody that's in crisis, we assume that it's criminal behavior. And when I first started, a lot of these people would get arrested and they get put into court, and however the court outcome panned out. But the issue is that court really isn't the place that these people should be going because they need help, right? So Barnstable has a mental health court. It runs out of Barnstable, but they take Falmouth cases. So now with our clinicians here working with us, we're allowed to refer these individuals to a mental health court that focuses a lot more on getting the treatment, staying on medications that they need, and that sort of stuff to help people so that they don't get stuck in the web of the criminal justice system when it's really just a mental health issue. So these ladies have really helped us out a lot with that. They've been instrumental in implementing that so that we can use that through the police department. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that as well. So now we'll be moving on to scams. It is Scam Awareness Month. We have a presentation. This is from the FTC. We deal with a lot of scams in Falmouth. It's very important that we put this information out to you because my day job, as far as working in the courts, the Scams are very hard for us to prosecute for a number of legal reasons. One being a lot of the telephone and internet scams that we'll be talking about here momentarily don't stem from this country. And I've done a lot of work in some of these cases to try to track them down, because if they're from this country, even if it's in a different state, there's a reasonable chance that we can identify the person and hopefully at least put in charge for them. But when they come from another country, there's little to nothing that we can do. So that means as far as getting your money back or as far as holding them criminally liable for that. So the best prevention is to put the information out so that we know how to spot a scam. So, stand by. Technical issue. Arrow, or is it these? Not moving. Excuse me for 1 second, sorry. So while Lauren's trying to sort that out, has anybody gotten the scam phone calls, the scam emails? Pretty much all of us have, right? If I get a call from a phone number that I don't recognize, I don't even answer it and I let it go to voicemail. That's going to be like one of the key takeaways that we get from this presentation. So the first thing we're going to talk about is unwanted calls and text messages. As we all know, I got a lot of chuckles from the crowd, so we get a lot of these calls and text messages, right? They're unwanted and they're unexpected calls. Some might have got the Social Security Administration scam, and we remember that from a couple of years ago. Your car warranty is about to expire. You're eligible for a cruise or a vacation, right? We pretty much get these nonstop. So one of the main things that we want to do when we get these is, first off, you want to ignore phone calls or hang up if you don't recognize the number or it sounds like one of these. You don't want to say anything to them. You don't want to press any buttons on your phone. The thing is that sometimes these people are able to record your voice or get you saying yes to something and try to use that later on in a more sophisticated scam. So usually what I like to do is I just don't answer any phone calls from numbers that I don't recognize. Then I listen to the voicemail. And if the voicemail says, hey, this is Comcast and your bill's due or something like that, I'll call the company back on a phone number that's that I know, that I got off of my bill or I got off of their website. So that's the big thing, is to verify these people. Unsolicited calls are always a warning sign. All right? There's also this ftc.gov. That's who put this presentation together. It's a website, www.ftc.gov. It has a lot of information on scams, what to do, how you can get in touch with your phone provider and block phone numbers, because sometimes you'll get phone calls from the same phone number over and over again. There is a table full of information on different scams in the back that you should definitely take a look at before you leave, because it gives you avenues to try to address some of these issues, because as we all know, they're pretty relentless, right? Unwanted contacts. So this is just like the phone calls, but it could be saying text messages. Have anyone been getting these text messages from deliveries or Amazon or saying there's problems with your account? I know we're in the political season, so you get a lot of those too. I've been getting a lot of political text messages. So unwanted text messages are another avenue that they're going over. Very similar to the phone calls is we want to ignore the text messages, don't reply, don't click on any of the links that they provide in there, okay? Because a lot of these links will direct you to a website that might try to steal information off of your computer. So it's very important also, like with the phone calls, that if you don't recognize the number of who's texting you, that you just block them and not send any other messages back to them. Government impersonation scams. This is another one. Calls, emails, texts, or messages on social media saying it's from the government or from the IRS. Have we gotten those? So you all have been doing taxes a lot longer than I have, but I have never got a call from the IRS. Has anyone gotten a call from the IRS? I think they send you something in the mail, right? If you're getting audited or something. All right, so that would be the first reason to consider this as suspicious. I will also tell you that as a police officer, I have never called anybody and told them I was going to come arrest them if they don't do X, Y, and Z. A lot of these phone calls will do that as well. Whether they want you to pay a bill or pay this or that. If I'm going to come arrest you, I'm not going to warn you ahead of time, okay? These are all warning signs of these scams. The reason that it works, and it's the reason why all these scams work, is they're convincing. and they can tap into your emotions. We'll get into some other scams later on where people might pretend to be a family member or a loved one. They're very convincing, and that's why it works. And it doesn't just work for an elder population. People my age and younger get scammed all the time. We take the calls for it. So it's not just an elder thing, it's an everybody thing. They do their research. There's a lot of information available for you online. If you're a homeowner, you can go to the assessor's department, you can get all sorts of information about your house. You can find out a whole bunch of info on somebody just by going online. So if these people do their homework, they could get enough information to convince you that they're actually from the company that they say they're from. As I said earlier, a real government agency, they're not going to call, text, or email you out of the blue with threats or promises for money. Okay, they're usually mail, right? A lot of the ways that they ask you to send them money is wire transfers, prepaid cards, gift cards, cryptocurrency. This is all the same as sending cash. So if anybody asks you to go down to Walmart and get a gift card from Amazon or whatever to pay a bill, that's a big warning sign. I don't know. I've never paid anybody in gift cards for anything. Has anyone out there legitimately paid somebody in gift cards aside from giving a present to your loved ones in Christmas? So if somebody's asking you to wire transfer or give gift cards to pay a debt, that's an immediate warning sign, okay? Some of the other things that they say, your social security number has been suspended, pay money to get reinstated. You owe back taxes, pay money or get arrested or deported. Share your Medicare number to get your new Medicare card. All of these are just people trying to fish for information so that they can try to take further advantage of you. Again, you're going to see a common theme amongst this is what to do. Stop. Don't click any links or call any numbers. Don't send anyone any money. And contact the agency at the number you know to be true. So if you have an account with this company, go ahead and pull up your bill or go to your filing cabinet and call that number back. Or you could go to the company's website and get their phone number from there and call and ask them. I've done this numerous times, and sometimes the calls are legitimate, but I'll always not talk to them, call them back for a number that I know is true. And sometimes it's legitimate and other times it's not, but that's a way to safeguard and protect yourself from being the victim of a scam. Business impersonator scams. So you're going to see that most of these, they start with an unsolicited call, text, email, or message on social media. And for these, they'll say that something bad or very good has happened, and they want you to call a number or click a link. They'll say you have to pay, or they'll ask for a social security number. They'll ask for access to your computer. Some of these, and I don't know if this is specifically covered in this slideshow. I don't remember seeing it, but do you remember a Saudi prince wants to give you guys some money, and you need to clean it for them so they can pick it up when they get here? That's along those lines, right? Nobody has ever given me $20,000 to $30,000 out of the blue. I think that would be another warning sign if somebody contacted you out of the blue and said, hey, there's $30,000 of unclaimed money. You just need to click this link and give us your social security number. A lot of these, again, they happen all over the country, and a lot of times they have different spins to them, but a lot of them are your Amazon account is suspended, your FedEx package is on the way if you're not expecting a FedEx package. Congratulations, you've been chosen to take a survey and win something free. It kind of makes me wonder about these legitimate ones where people win things, how many of that goes unclaimed now because everyone's so afraid it's a scam, you know? Same thing, we're not going to click any links or call any numbers, never send anyone any money, and contact the company at the number you know to be true. This is pretty much going to be the same for most of this stuff. These are ways to safeguard yourselves. Health insurance scams. TV ads, email, phone calls, postal mail. These scams use all of those avenues to try to approach you. They may say that you need to replace your Medicare card, get a new health insurance card, or buy a medical discount plan. Now, I'm sure there's a number of people that are or have in the past been a part of medical discount plans. They exist, they're legitimate, but the problem is these scams try to get lost in between the legitimate ones and the illegitimate ones so that you sign up for this fraudulent card. Again, they're convincing, they play on your emotions, and they lie on the facts. These people are professional con men and women, and so they know what they're doing. And they're going to use all of their resources to try to get money out of you. And a lot of times, when you think about if you've gotten these calls, you can hear that it sounds like it's from a call center. You hear a bunch of noise in the background. So there's a bunch of people in other countries sitting in a room, and all they're doing is making phone calls all day long. Now, granted, that may sound like it's tedious work, but I've covered scams where people have sent these people $50,000, $100,000. So you get one of those in a week, a month, a year, it makes all the phone numbers that you've dialed worth it over the time, right? When you get a message about health insurance, ask yourself, do I really need a new card? Is the person really a government official? Call 1-800-MEDICARE. Okay, that's a legitimate number that you can call to get information on your health insurance needs. And is a medical discount plan a good deal for me? Okay, the senior center also has resources that help you navigate these types of things. So you could always call the senior center as well if you suspect something to be fraudulent, and they could let you know if it's a legitimate plan or not. Tech support scams. Have we seen these? Somebody wants to log in on your computer and, yep. Okay. So you'll either get a caller or a pop-up that says it's tech support, they found viruses on your computer, and they want to get remote access to your computer. So these kind of prey on the idea that not everybody knows about the inner workings of a computer. And technology evolves so fast that I'm starting to find myself in the category that I know less than I used to be the guy that knew about all the information technology stuff, and it's kind of starting to pass me too. So they're taking advantage of this and trying to get at you to get you to click on a link or give them access to your computer. Now, everybody uses computers for different things. Some people have more information in their computer than others. But nowadays, a lot of people have a lot of information in their computers or phones. So when you click on these links or allow them to have access to your computer or your phone, they could potentially get access to everything you have in there, being bank account information, any secure documents, any identifying documents that you have in there. Again, they're convincing and they tap into your emotions. They may ask you, so this is actually a good point. Sometimes we have these individuals that will hold your computer hostage. So once you give access to them, so they have access to your computer, if you have stuff in your computer that you really need, they'll lock you out of your computer and tell you, we'll give you the access back if you send us gift cards or money or something to that effect to get your access back to your computer. That's something that they're capable of doing. I have no idea how it works, but I know that they can do it. So that's another thing to look out for. Again, if it's a telephone thing you want to hang up, never give up control of your computer to anybody. Never give your credit card information to someone who calls you out of the blue. Okay, a lot of times we have people fairly often that bring their laptops, they're shut off, and they bring them to the police department and let us know that they had some kind of virus or something to that effect. The important thing is that you didn't give them any information or any access to your computer. If it's a matter of a virus or something on your computer, we'd usually recommend that you take that computer to an outside contractor of some sort, whether that be Best Buy or one of the agencies that work with how to get that virus off of your computer or that malware off of your computer so that you don't have to deal with that anymore. But as long as you didn't give them any information, you can have a computer contractor that will be able to get that off of your computer. Investment scams. Infomercial or ad online that says you can learn how to make a lot of money quick, easy, low risk. I think there's a lot of educated people in this room. Is there anything that's low risk if you're going to make a lot of money? Typically not, right? I mean, we all know it takes a long time for compounding interest to work and everything. So if somebody's guaranteeing they're going to double your money in a short amount of time, that's another warning sign. Again, they're convincing, they tap into your emotions, and they may have testimonials. So depending on how familiar you are with the internet or websites that you can look up, you can go to websites and it'll say, Jimmy P says they were great and I give them a 5-star rating. You have no way of knowing if Jimmy P is the person that actually wrote that review just because it's posted on a web page. So they can fake a lot of information that will make things more convincing for you. Again, stop, consider the risk, and take time to research the offer, okay? So especially when we're talking about financial investments, you can use whichever resources you have or look into a financial planner or somebody that can really explain the pros and cons of this. Home repair scams and maintenance scams, they're usually expensive, urgent, they require special skills or equipment. The way that I've seen this in Falmouth a lot of times is driveway sealing. So my understanding of the way this works is you have the truck that's full of driveway sealant. So I have a legitimate job with this gentleman right here, and I go seal his driveway. There's some residual sealant left in the tank. So I go fill it up with water so that it mixes around, and then I go to your house and say, hey, I had some leftover stuff. Do you want me to do your driveway? I'll do it cheap. So you're getting shoddy work, and they're walking away with your money. Scammers knock on your door. They pressure you for repairs sometimes. They ask for payment up front, accept only cash. They suggest you borrow money for a specific lender that they know. These are all warning signs that the person might be legitimate or be illegitimate. It's very important that you do your due diligence with contractors and the people that you're going to give money to do work on your house. Sometimes that's harder or easier said than done, right? Sometimes getting contractors on the Cape can be difficult. Sometimes getting them to respond in a timely manner. I mean, I live on the Cape. I'm sure you guys have all dealt with this before as well. Getting them to respond to you or get the work done in a timely manner or do more than half the job at a time can be tough. That doesn't mean that all of these people are scamming you. Some of them are just legitimately busy. But it's tough getting contracting on the Cape, but it's important that you guys use your resources to verify that this is a legitimate agency that you're going to have do work on your house. So what happens next with these scams is they never make repairs. They make shoddy repairs. Your home is at risk. They may do half of the job and you'll never hear from them again. So from the court aspect of my job, the problem with these being hard to prosecute is the way that the law is written is that if I am going to do some work on your house and we make a deal and I do half of the work and then for whatever reason, I don't finish it. As far as it being a criminal issue, the court needs to prove that at the time we made the deal, I intended to defraud you. That's very hard because if I then went and did some work to the house, it shows that it doesn't look like I was trying to scam you because I did some of the work and then maybe things came up in my life and I wasn't able to finish it or whatever the case may be. Now that doesn't mean that you can't go after them civilly, but as far as a criminal aspect, these cases can be really hard for them to prove over at court. So what we usually suggest is to get 3 estimates, get references and proof of license and insurance, and get it in writing. Again, a lot of this stuff with people working at your house isn't going to end up being a criminal issue if they don't perform the work, but at least by doing these things, you can protect yourself so that you can try to go after them civilly. You've won scams. We kind of talked about this a little bit. You get a call, text message, email, or letter that says you've won a prize, a sweepstakes, lottery, vacation. Some of these are legitimate. A lot of them, if they're legitimate, they then want you to sit in on a timeshare, you know, or something to that effect. They always got you. Nobody's giving you anything for free. But what happens next with these is scammers say you must pay fees, taxes, or customs duties in order to claim your prize. They pressure you to act now. They tap into your emotions, or they tell you to keep this a secret. That should be a warning indicator number 1 if somebody says keep this a secret, right? Again, they'll take cash, wire transfers, gift cards, credit or bank account numbers. I'm always very suspicious if somebody says I won something, especially if I don't recall signing up for it. Okay? Again, stop. Don't give any personal or financial information, and don't send any types of payments. Romance scams. They happen. They happen fairly often. A lot of times this is someone contacts you on social media or you meet somebody on a dating website. They quickly say that they're in love with you. They ask for money for a plane ticket or to come see you. Usually they're from another part of town. These people prey on people that are lonely. It happens more than you would think, even in our town. We've seen a lot of these. And typically it's somebody, sometimes it's someone a lot younger and they start asking for money to come visit you. And then one thing happens and they can't, sorry, something came up, I couldn't come this time, but can you send me another $500 for this? And they'll ride that out as long as they possibly can. They're convincing, they tap into your emotions, just like the other scams. They'll ask for money from all the ways that we discussed, wire transfer, prepaid cards, gift cards. Some of their lines, I wish I could come meet you, but I don't have enough money for a plane ticket. I want to come visit, but my son is sick and I don't have the money to take him to the doctor. If I could only get a visa, we could be together. Can you send money to help pay for it? Again, these should all pop up those red flags in your head if somebody's asking you for money for these reasons. We recommend that you always take it slow. A lot of people legitimately meet people online through dating sites, and it's legitimate and it pans out. But that doesn't mean that you can just assume that it's going to be okay for you. Never send these people any money, and so pass this information to a friend. What they're saying is all of this information in the slideshow. We need to get the word out on it. You'll see that Falmouth Police does social media postings that talk about recent scams. I know the Senior Center puts stuff out. So we want to get the information out so that we can stop it before it even starts. Oh, sorry. So also starting a conversation with your friends, like we said, talk about pass it on, share what you know, your strategies and ideas. It's important that we get the word out on these things. A couple of stories from some scams that I've covered, not necessarily war stories, but just so you know that it's out there. One that's not covered on here that we actually saw or see a lot of is we have a lot of summer rental property down here, right? So these scammers will find the summer rental property and they'll rent. If I have a house on the water that I'm renting, legitimately, a scammer will find that and they'll try to rent it too. So we will have check-in day on Sunday where two sets of people show up and we don't know who to give who gets the keys, because one was a scammer that took your deposit and another is the legitimate homeowner. One that I was involved in that I tracked down and had to do a bunch of court subpoenas and search warrants for, it ended up coming from another country. So again, although I could identify the IP address from where it was coming from, very little that we could do about it. And unfortunately, the people that came down and rented that house, they're out the money and they're now in Falmouth and they have no place to stay. And Falmouth in the summer, no luck getting a hotel, right? And if there's somebody that flew in or traveled a great distance, now they have to figure out how they're going to get home. So that's one that we deal with fairly often down here. Another one, I had the bank actually called us, and our banks in Falmouth are pretty great about calling us when they see suspicious activity. And we had a lady at the bank that was trying to take a large sum of money out to wire to her granddaughter, who was in a different country being held by the police. The money was for bail. It took a very long time to convince her that this was a scam. We couldn't get a hold of the granddaughter, because the granddaughter was legitimately doing a semester abroad, but we couldn't get a hold of the granddaughter. And after a while, we were able to get a hold of the victim's mother, who was the granddaughter's mother. And at that point, she was able to convince mom that, no, I talked to her, yesterday, she's fine. There's no way she's in a Mexican prison. There's no way that you need to send all this money for bail. And it's really sad, but these people can be very convincing. And everyone seems to think that it's not going to happen to me, it's not going to happen to me. And I have seen it happen to young people. I've seen it happen to older people. I've seen it happen to people with PhDs, people that I consider a lot smarter than me, and they fall victim to these scams. So again, the importance and the biggest thing is that we get this information out there, because that's how we're going to stop it. So think of these red flags. If somebody's calling you out of the blue asking for money, if somebody's asking you to send money via a gift card or a debit card, no legitimate businesses ever take payment through a gift card, especially if you're talking about a business like Comcast. You can't pay Comcast with an Amazon gift card, right? So regardless of how convincing they can be, all right? So that's basically the presentation on scams that I have. We can open it up if there's any questions on scams, and then also I know the chief just said police department questions in general, him and I can answer. Sir?
Hello. Thank you. This is all very, very interesting, Detective. Appreciate that very much. My question is, I want to know if I'm wasting my time or not. I get the past couple of years, I've been getting tons and tons of these emails, and I don't open them, of course. And I scroll down, and I block the email.
Yep.
But it keeps coming back. I know with a different address, so I keep blocking these things, and I have a ton of them that are blocked, and it's just taking up space in my iPhone.
Right.
Am I wasting my time doing this, or should I just delete it and expect to have it come back again?
So
Thank you.
So I do what you do. I block them. I feel like hopefully it's putting a dent in them. It doesn't stop it because they come from a new email address, and it's the same thing with the phones. If you block one phone number, they'll call you back from a different phone number. So I feel like it's putting a dent in it because I do that practice as well myself. Whether or not it actually is, I don't know. The frauds are the scams are so prevalent. But I do block them, and I think it helps. I know that my wife doesn't block them, and my inbox has a lot less stuff in it than hers. So I like to think that's maybe because of my due diligence. But I think that's a good practice in my opinion.
Blocking an email or deleting an email, is that the same thing?
So the question was, is blocking an email or is deleting an email the same thing? No, it's not. So when you delete an email, it just deletes it as if you were throwing a piece of mail away. When you block it, it puts some information basically into your mailbox that it's not going to allow that mail to get forwarded to you anymore. So you'll stop getting mail from that address when you block it. When you delete it, it will not do that.
Yesterday, I got a call from the Publishers Clearinghouse. They've been out of business for, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, that I won $5 million.
Oh, jeez.
And
He won $5 million.
going along with him. Every call that I've ever had was given by a man or a woman with a heavy accent. That was a giveaway. And what I do, I let them talk, and I agree with them, oh, yes, yes, yes. Then I'll say off to the side of my mouth, Sheriff, please trace his call, and they hang up. It's the greatest gimmick. It's a game I play.
Yeah.
But they keep on calling with the same topic. Either $5 million or something's wrong with my computer.
Mm-hmm.
I got 3 calls Saturday on my computer.
I don't get that.
My computer's out of commission.
Yeah.
And, my wife and I, we laugh at the thing after the fact. And but it's a shame that so many people get scammed.
It really is.
And sometimes I tell them, in no uncertain terms, how I feel, and I use the 4-letter words. And they just hang up.
Yep.
And so I just want to pass.
Yeah, so I refer to that as the Evelyn approach. Evelyn is my grandmother. She's 90 years old, and she loves nothing more than keeping these scammers on the phone as long as she possibly can to waste their time before she hangs up on them. She gets a kick out of it. As long as you're not giving them any personal information, if you're wasting their time and that makes you happy, God bless you.
I have a question. I have a question about people coming to your door, especially young people, trying to sell magazine subscriptions and saying it's a fundraiser. I was almost taken in until my adult daughter said, "Mom, you're too gullible." Is that happening? I think I had someone come to my door about 6 months ago trying to sell me something.
So I can say that some of the magazine sales are legitimate. Determining which ones are and which one aren't is very hard. I will say that in order to go door to door in Falmouth, you have to get a permit from the town hall, so they should have some paperwork and a permit on them. So that's usually a good first question is, do you have a permit through the town hall? And then also we will get dispatched out to check on these people that are going door to door if they go to your house and then you call and say, hey, someone's selling magazines on Mara Vista Ave. We'll go try to find them and see if they have their permits, and if they don't, then we'll tell them they need to leave. You're welcome.
And in many cases, too, some of the magazine salespeople, they're not from this area, they're from different parts of the country, and they do have some checkered past. So we really do encourage you to call us so we can check on them. We have had different crimes throughout my career dealing with these folks. So some could be legitimate, but we really would appreciate, a call. We would rather go out and prevent something from happening than have to take a report that your house was being eaten, or, someone keeps you busy while, at the door while someone else enters your home. I mean, all kinds of things. You want to make sure if someone's saying, I need to read your water meter in your house, do they work for the town of Falmouth, right? So there's some people out there that are up to no good.
I have a question. So, Jimmy, so Mel, you had mentioned how you like to keep them on the line. My concern would be, are they recording your voice for a future scam? And should you not do that?
And that is a legitimate concern. We touched upon it kind of briefly early in the presentation. I can't say that I have experienced this in my law enforcement career, but we have heard that there's potential that people could record your voice, and then if they're trying to do something later on, use your voice saying yes or no or I agree or whatever. So it is a legitimate concern, yes.
Does Falmouth have any issues with squatters? And if so, what can we do about it as a landowner?
So we do. The state of Massachusetts is really strong on tenants' rights. And a lot of times when it depends on the specific situation, whether it's something criminal that we could get involved in or not. As far as somebody breaking into a house that they've never been in there, and then they're deciding to squat, that's usually something the police department can get involved in and try to help with. As far as if it's somebody that you rented to or allowed to stay in your house, that's when things get really difficult as far as the criminal aspect. And you would need to go through the eviction process with the courts. And sometimes that process can take a long time. It can get very contentious. And especially if you have a tenant that knows the laws and knows their rights, it can be very hard for you to get them out. So if you're a landowner or a renter, you just need to be very careful and do your due diligence as far as who you rent your property to. Other questions? Oh, there's one behind you, Lauren. And then also we can do police department questions too if it's not just scam related.
This is a general police department question. Could you tell us where the homeless camps are? And the reason I'm asking is I hike a lot of the conservation lands, and I don't want to accidentally, go in a dangerous area or anything. But, and also in one of the conservation lands I walked at, I did see some, sketchy person that I felt uncomfortable, but I don't, I was wondering if there's dangerous places to hike or not. So.
They're all over Falmouth. They're all over Falmouth. I would say if you see something like that, avoid it. Avoid the area. I'm sorry?
That the Mass Audubon at Asham at Holly, is there any problems there?
I'm
Please.
not aware of any specific problems.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any specific problems, but the thing is the camps are kind of transient, and we also move people along at times, so we can't really predict necessarily where they are today is going to be where they are tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm not aware of any specifically, but that doesn't mean that there's not some people in there, and that doesn't mean that there's never going to be anyone in there. And it's also not all of the homeless population that we have is a safety concern. Some people have mental health issues. Some people like living in a tent in the woods, and that may be surprising to some of us. But we will move people along. So if you see something, if you call us, and we'll go check on them and see if there's any services that they need, and if they need to be moved along, we will. But we can't just paint with a broad brush either, and just say that everybody's going to be a danger to us just because they're in a tent.
And it's a problem. People living in their cars. A couple of weeks ago, I introduced a clinicians and swore in a bunch of officers in front of the select board, and I gave life-saving medal to an officer who was checking on a homeless woman living in her car in a parking lot in town. And she had overdosed, and he gave her life-saving Narcan and medical assistance. So it's everywhere. You may see a certain van in a beach parking lot night after night after night. That person's homeless or unhoused, I guess is the proper term now. But it's a huge problem in Falmouth.
So, once again, thank you all for being here. This is really helpful to be able to ask these questions. I understand that the police department is working also with some of the other organizations that are providing services to some of the people who have no place to live.
We work with human services. We also, obviously have social workers as well. So we comes up we have meetings with the senior center every month as well. So yes, we do partner with these programs to try to get people the help that we can. There's also programs when the temperature drops below freezing to give people at least overnight reprieve in one of the hotels. So there's some of the things that we have and we do to try to help.
Anything to add, Steph?
I'll just say that Molly and I both work really closely with some of the other agencies on the Cape. So Housing Assistance Corporation, we work closely with. Vinvenda's Homeless Outreach, and we work with them. So a big part of our role is making those connections and making sure that people have a full array of services. We do have a bi-weekly meeting with all of those providers to kind of review the homeless folks that are known to us and just make sure that everybody's working with the same information to support them.
And we have a religious institution in town too. They put on meals and luncheons. I believe they have a trailer come periodically so they can shower, those things. So it's a very active group in town. They meet regularly. One of our sergeants, Farrar, is part of it, too, a liaison with a bunch of different working groups in Falmouth, but the region. Because like I said, beyond Barnstable's number 1, we're number 2, and number 3 is not even close. And a lot of it has to do with, we have a rehab facility in town. We have the largest number of sober houses on the Cape. Some of those houses aren't quite that sober. So, it's just something we have to deal with. It's an absolutely beautiful community. I want you all to feel safe. I really do. But we have our issues. I mean, we just had a shooting, a couple of weeks ago that we're still working on. Hopefully we're going to solve that soon. The Detective Bureau is doing a great job with that. Our sex assaults are up this year. I mean, the different things that we deal with, we're, not immune to some of the things that are happening, and I would say our 33,000 year-round population is much higher than that. And then when you hit the summer months, and we're going to be blinking, and we're going to be, back in June, we swell to over 100,000. So it's a lot on your police department. It's why I'm going to be coming to you asking for more tires that meet the road. We don't have enough officers. If you look at the state, federal standards for our 33,000 population, we should be 78 sworn. In the summer, over 100, we should be 230. Now, is that going to happen? No. The fire department's over 100. These are things that I'm going to be bringing to your attention that we're going to need your support and your help moving forward. I'm working right now. I think as of today, we had another officer start a lateral transfer, someone we were able to poach from a local agency. And that brings us up to, I believe, 61 on the payroll. Of those 61 on the payroll, which is very low, we haven't been at our proper staffing level 67 since 2010. Of that 61, 9 are in the academy, 2 are on military deployment, 1 is injured on duty, hasn't been to work the entire time I've been here. So we're working in the 40s, in essence. So if you can imagine 54 square miles, counting our waterways, right, 44 and change land, I have 5 sectors. Back in the 60s and 70s, they said, hey, you need more sectors. So right now, I'm developing a plan with my team to have 8 sectors. You should have 8 officers on the road. If you can imagine 5 officers covering that amount of square miles with a hit and run or a pedestrian accident or that overdose or that shooting or these other things that we have to face on a daily basis, we just don't have enough people. People are complaining, right? We created a strategic traffic enforcement program. You go on our website, you click the link, and we'll do traffic enforcement in that area of concern. I don't have anyone to do it, right? They're answering calls constantly. But when they have time, they will. What do I want? I want a traffic division, right? I want a group of officers and a sergeant. That's all they do is deal with the motoring issues, whether it be bicyclists, whether it be pedestrian accidents, whether it be when there's really an issue with speeding cars and different things, to be able to actually deploy our assets, deploy our most precious resource, our staff, to take care of those issues that are going to improve quality of life in Falmouth. Same with our detective bureau. Unbelievably understaffed. If you saw their desks and the amount of hours that they're working, it's amazing. So we need to add staff to deal with some of these issues, but we're not getting quieter. We're just getting busier. And I think when you add COVID in the mix, I think a lot of the folks that came down here, because a lot of people work remotely now, they didn't leave. They stayed here. I'd be hard pressed to say there's 33,000 people living here year round. I think it's higher than that. People don't fill out the census. These homeless folks that I'm talking about, they're not filling out a census. They're just not, but they're here. And we're providing them services. And we want them to be able to approach us when there is a crisis, when something happens, because they're less likely to report a crime against their person or an issue that happens. So it's just the reality of Falmouth is gorgeous. It's beautiful. I live in East Falmouth, right? Not far from where I live was a stabbing murder. I want you to know that you're safe, that individual that was killed, it wasn't just a random act of violence. The person was targeted because of the lifestyle that they're in, the issues that they got involved in. And very sad for them, and so sad for the families. But it's the reality of Falmouth. 5 homicides in 2 years. It's a lot. It's a lot. 3 in a year we had. So, and again, not to scare anyone, it's just the harsh reality of where we live, and it's a beautiful place. People come. We're a little milder in the winter, and we're trying to help. We're trying to do the best we can with the resources that we have. I know I talked to some folks last month that we're hoping we'd be a little bit more compassionate as a police department, helping this homeless person that they encountered. The problem is we can only do what we can do, and we're very, very short-staffed right now. But I'm working on it. 9 in the academy. The department's been supportive. Creating a deputy chief's position July 1st, 2 more sergeants, and we'll actually be at 67. We're actually budgeted for 65 right now because the clinicians came out of the police department salary line. They put those positions back in because I knew I wasn't going to be able to hire, or the town knew we weren't going to be able to hire all these folks all at once. Coming out of civil service was a huge help, and that's why we have 9 absolute rock stars in the Linfield Academy right now. And next October, we're going to have academy right here in Falmouth. So I won't have to send these kids driving all over the state. Boylston, I think you went to?
I did.
So what's that, an hour and 40 minutes a day, one way?
At least.
At least. So, these are also factors that come into play. But we're negotiating contracts. I'm hoping to settle them soon to make Falmouth a destination where I'm able to poach a lot of police officers. I got one standing in the back right there. I took from the vineyard. And Falmouth born and raised, so he's come home. So I want to keep him here. I don't want our officers that are working on the other side of the bridge to find employ on that side of the bridge. They signed a contract with me for 3 years. That 3 years begins the day they finish their field training program. And if they leave, I make them pay us the money back that we all invested in them as taxpayers in town, right? And some of them will leave if we don't create a destination by making sure our officers are properly compensated. It's expensive to live here. We need to compensate them. We're the second largest and second busiest community in the Cape. We shouldn't be the lower middle of the pack with pay. And that's just what we're trying to work on now. And the other is to provide training opportunities, equipment opportunities, specialty opportunities where they feel vested in Falmouth and they don't want to leave here. And then they go to in-service and they talk to their friends, and I poach them to Falmouth to hopefully save money. And that's the goal right now. But thank you all very much again for having us. Next month, I'm going to be bringing in our civil rights officer, Sergeant Ryan Hurt, talk about some programs and things we're doing on that front. And the president of the local NAACP is going to come in and share her story and talk about diversity in what we're dealing with here in Falmouth. But again, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for having us every month. And I look forward to warmer weather next month. Thank you.